Lin Ruoxi never thought that her life would change completely because of an old warehouse. That night, she just wanted to find a peaceful place to hide and avoid the unfinished overtime work and the sarcasm of her boss. Next to the small apartment she rented was a deserted old warehouse, with iron doors growing in the sky, and the windows were broken so that only a few broken glass left. No one would go there normally. She wrapped her leather jacket tightly, pushed open the squeaky door, and walked in. There was a musty smell inside, and the dim light came through the broken windows, and I could hardly see the broken wooden boxes and waste irons scattered on the ground. Lin Ruoxi kicked a wooden board with his hand, found a corner and sat down, took out his phone and browsed his circle of friends, but his heart was still a mess. She is 25 years old, has a poor job and has no hope for life. She always feels like a rootless duckweed, and she doesn't know where to go. Just as she was slid her phone down, a low buzzing sound suddenly came from the depths of the warehouse, as if there was some machine moving. She was stunned for a moment, raised her head and looked around. The sound became clearer and clearer, and it also carried a strange rhythm, like a heartbeat, dong, dong, dong. She felt a little angry, but she couldn't help but be curious, and stood up and walked towards the direction of the sound. There is a small partition behind the warehouse, the door is half open, and it is pitch black inside, and the sound of the buzzing sound is from there. Lin Ruoxi hesitated for a moment, and still opened the door. In an instant, a strong blue light pierced her eyes. She subconsciously held her face with her hand and felt an inexplicable suction coming from the light source, as if she wanted to pull her whole person in. Her heart beat faster, her feet unconsciously moved forward, and then she felt like she was pulled suddenly by something and lost her balance. When she opened her eyes again, she was no longer in the warehouse. Surrounded by dense forests, trees so high that they cannot be seen. The sunlight came down from the leaves, and the ground was covered with thick moss. The air is filled with the fragrance of soil and plants, which is completely different from the smell of the city that is mixed with tail gas. Lin Ruoxi stood there in a daze and looked down. She saw that the phone in her hand was gone. She was still the leather jacket, but the sports shoes under her feet were covered with mud. Her brain was blank. Where was this? Isn't she in the warehouse? A low growl came suddenly, like a wild beast roar, breaking the silence of the forest. Lin Ruoxi felt nervous and hurriedly squatted down and hid behind a big tree, holding her breath and looking in the direction of the sound. Only a few meters away, a huge wild wolf was sniffing the smell of the ground. The fur was gray-black and the eyes were flashing with green light. It slowly walked towards her, and each step made the fallen leaves on the ground rustle. Lin Ruoxi gritted her teeth tightly, her palms were covered in sweat. She knew she could not escape this guy, but she couldn't just sit there and wait. At this moment, a figure emerged from the shrub beside it, as fast as a shadow. The man held a huge stone sword in his hand, with a few blue crystals embedded in his body, emitting a faint light. He rushed directly to the wild wolf, and his movements were clean and neat. With a slap, the wild wolf screamed and fell to the ground. The blood was pouring on the ground, and the fishy smell came to the nose. Lin Ruoxi widened her eyes, and there was only one thought in her brain: who is this person? She poked her head carefully and saw the man turning over. He was tall, full of beards, wearing a coarse cloth dress, and wearing a ragged leather armor on the outside. His eyes were so sharp that he could see through everything. He carried the giant slap on his shoulder and walked a few steps in her direction, his voice low and full of rings. "Who are you? Why is it here?" Lin Ruoxi was so panicked, but she was still calm on her face. She stood up and patted the mud on her hands, making her voice less trembling. My name is Lin Ruoxi, and she was just in the city, but she got here for no reason." "Who are you? What is this place?" The man raised his eyebrows and looked her up and down, but the suspicion in his eyes did not decrease at all. "I am Zhang Haoran, this is the forbidden area of the Qingyan tribe. Outsiders are not allowed to be good at it. You'd better give it a good explanation, otherwise I won't guarantee your safety." "Forbidden land? Qingyan tribe?" Lin Ruoxi was confused. She had never heard these words before, and her brain was in a mess. She tried to explain, I really don't know where this is. I just fell out of a blue light and then got here. Do you believe it or not? I have no leniency anyway. Zhang Haoran heard the two words blue light, his face changed slightly, and his hand holding the sword tightened. He was silent for a few seconds, and then said coldly, follow me and don't play with flowers. After speaking, he turned around and walked towards the deep forest, with great steps, regardless of whether Lin Ruoxi could keep up. Lin Ruoxi gritted her teeth. Although she was unwilling to do so, she knew she had no choice. She was not familiar with the place, so the wolf was scary just now. She had been coming back several times, but she was not sure she could survive. So she quickly followed Zhang Haoran, walked around and secretly glanced at his back, guessing in her heart what this guy was. The sword was not ordinary in color at first glance, and there were those shiny stones, and I always thought it was strange here. After walking for about half an hour, the forest gradually became sparse, and a piece of open land appeared in front of me. 10 shabby houses made of wooden and stone were scattered around. There were also several people in leather armor patrolling the road. The smell of smoke from the air was flying, and several women were busy in the fire, and the children were playing around. Lin Ruoxi looked at it without looking at it. This place was not like the modern city she was familiar with, but like a certain primitive tribe. Zhang Haoran took her to a big house in the middle of the village. There were several purple skins hanging outside the house, and 2 sluts holding long spears stood at the door. He said a few words to one of them, and the man clicked a little and turned into the house. After a while, an old man with white hair walked out, wearing a dark blue blouse, his face full of patterns, but his eyes were unusually sharp. Haoran, who is this? The old man opened his mouth, his voice carrying unquestionable majesty. Old, she calls herself Lin Ruoxi, saying that she came from the blue light. Zhang Haoran replied with a low head, with a respectful expression. The old man heard the blue light, narrowed his eyes slightly, turned his head to look at Lin Ruoxi, and looked up and down. Little girl, do you know what blue light is? Lin Ruoxi shook her head and replied, I don't know. I just know that I was sucked in by the light, and then it's here. Can you tell me where is this? I have to go back. The old man did not answer directly, but turned to Zhang Haoran, take her to the crack and let her see for herself. Haoran, remember, don't let her come. Zhang Haoran pointed at the head and then signaled Lin Ruoxi to follow. The two left the village and walked towards another forest. This time, the journey was longer and Lin Ruoxi's legs were almost broken, but she didn't dare to complain and could only grit her teeth and follow. Finally, they came to a secret cave, and the entrance was covered by vines. If they didn't look carefully, they wouldn't find it. Zhang Haoran opened the vines and took her into the hole. The hole is very dark, but the more you walk, the more you can feel a familiar wave of energy. Lin Ruoxi felt like this, and the suction force in the warehouse. Sure enough, when she walked to the bottom of the cave, she saw a blue light curtain floating in the air. The surface of the light curtain flowed like a water wave, emitting a faint buzzing sound. This is the crack. Zhang Haoran stood aside, his voice low. It connects 2 worlds, ours, and yours. Not everyone can pass it through it. You can come here to show that you are not simple. Lin Ruoxi stared at the light curtain, feeling mixed emotions in her heart. She guessed that she might have traveled through time, but this thing sounded too ridiculous, and she even wondered if she was dreaming. She stretched out her hand and tried to touch the light curtain, but was pulled by Zhang Haoran. Don't be upset, he said with a stern voice. The crack is unstable, and something happens any time you encounter it. You always tell me, who are you? Why are you selected by the crack? Lin Ruoxi shook his hand and said unhappily, I said everything, I don't know anything. I am an ordinary person. After ordinary days, I was inexplicably sucked in. Now you still doubt me, is it over? Zhang Haoran stared at her, and the ring in his eyes was still not reduced, but he didn't ask any more. He was silent for a while and said, You stay in the tribe for a while, but don't expect us to trust you easily. The matter of cleavage, related to the safety of the 2 worlds, we will not let anyone come. Lin Ruoxi was helpless and could only click. She knew that she couldn't go back now, so she could only stay here first and figure out what was going on. But she was insecure. The people here were too nervous about the crack and Zhang Haoran's weird drama, and she always felt that there was something big secret hidden here. At this moment, a sudden burst of stomping sound came from outside the cave. A young tribe member rushed in and was filled with panic. "Brother Haoran, it's not good." The energy of the crack began to fluctuate again, and a few demons appeared nearby. "Old man will make you go back." Zhang Haoran's face darkened and turned to Lin Ruoxi. "Follow me and don't lose the team." After saying that, he pulled out the giant sword and walked quickly outside the cave. Lin Ruoxi felt nervous. Although she didn't understand what magic was, looking at this strategist, it was definitely not a good thing. She took a deep breath and followed Zhang Haoran's steps. Her brain couldn't help but wonder, how much danger is there in this place? Can you go back alive? The wind in the forest became bigger and bigger, with the rustling leaves rustling, and the sound of the roaring sounds everywhere, making people feel cold and irritated. Lin Ruoxi followed Zhang Haoran tightly. Her feet stumbled, but there was a little more stability in her eyes. No matter what, she had to figure it out, otherwise she might never go back to the world she knew. Lin Ruoxi followed Zhang Haoran tightly, and the soil under her feet was slippery and almost fell down several times. The wind in the forest was shaking harder, the branches were blown awkwardly, and the growls from afar were getting closer and closer, as if something was approaching them. Her heart beats like a drumbeat, and her brain is in a mess, but her hands subconsciously clamped the corner of her clothes and told herself not to panic. Zhang Haoran walked in front, his steps as if he had not heard those roars. The giant sword was carried on his shoulders, and the blue crystals on the sword were lit up in the dim forest. What is a magical creature? Lin Ruoxi finally couldn't help but open her mouth, with a little bit of chewing in her voice, but she tried hard to make herself less afraid of hearing. "It doesn't sound like something good to deal with." Zhang Haoran didn't reply, and his words were cold and hard. When the crack energy was out of control, it would attract some things. They were not ordinary wild animals, with magic power on their bodies, strong and thick skin. Ordinary people had only one way to die. "Don't ask more questions, don't run around, just listen to me." Lin Ruoxi curled her lips and muttered in her heart, "Why do this person always act like this?" But she didn't dare to talk anymore. As soon as that wolf was scary, she wouldn't be sure that she would get out of it without any more. The two of them quickly walked through the forest and finally returned to the entrance of the Qingyan tribe. The atmosphere in the village was not right. The woman who was originally busy by the fire and the children playing in the play were no longer visible. Several gangs holding long spears were guarding the entrance of the village, with their eyes slapped everywhere. Around the forest far away, several dark shadows seemed to be hidden, accompanied by a low roar, making people's backs sway. As soon as Zhang Haoran arrived at the entrance of the village, he was trapped by an old tribe member. The man was sweating profusely and his words were rapid. "Brother Haoran, the demons are approaching. There are 3, at least all of them at the middle level." The elder said, "Let you take people to live there, don't let them enter the village." "I understand." Zhang Haoran pointed his head and turned to Lin Ruoxi, with a little more warning in his eyes. "You stay in the village and don't leave. If there is anything, find a place to hide and don't drag your back." Lin Ruoxi rolled her eyes, feeling unhappy, but she also knew that this was not the time to be humble. She clicked a little, stepped aside, and watched Zhang Haoran lead several tribal warriors toward the forest. Their movements were well trained, and several people quickly scattered, with long spears and bows in their hands ready to fight. The roar was getting closer and closer, and Lin Ruoxi stood at the entrance of the village, looking far away at the silence in the forest. Soon, several huge black shadows emerged from the tree forest. Their body was larger than the wolf just now. They were covered with heavy armor and their eyes were filled with angry light. As soon as they appeared, the ground was shaken slightly. Zhang Haoran shouted loudly and rushed up first. The giant sword carried a blue light and directly slashed at the front of the demon. The sword collided with the armor and made a harsh metal sound. The demon roared in pain. However, it did not retreat, but instead Zhang Kai's bloody mouth turned towards Zhang Haoran. The warrior next to him quickly stabbed the demon's side with his long spear, and the arrow shot from behind, barely suppressing its movement. Lin Ruoxi was shocked to see it. This scene was more realistic than any movie. She could even hear the bloody smell in the air. "This is too annoying," she muttered in a low voice, and took a few steps back unconsciously. Although Zhang Haoran let her run away, she really felt that standing here was a living target. As soon as there is a magic weapon breaking through the defense line and rushing into the village, she doesn't have the ability to deal with it. Just then, a scream suddenly came from the other end of the village, breaking her thoughts. Lin Ruoxi suddenly turned around and saw a little boy running out of a wooden house. His face was full of shock. He ran and shouted, "Mom! Something has passed." His voice had not yet landed. A slightly smaller magical beast had already emerged from the shrubs on the side of the village and rushed straight towards the child. Lin Ruoxi's brain was so hot that she couldn't help but feel scared. She rushed over and hugged the child and pulled him aside. The demon snatched a piece of air, let out a roar, and turned toward them. Lin Ruoxi held the child, her heart beat so fast that it was about to explode, and there was only one thought in her brain: run. She gritted her teeth and got up, dragged the child to the nearest wooden house, and shouted, "Is anyone? Come and help." The demon was shockingly fast and was about to catch up. Fortunately, a tribe warrior heard the sound and rushed over. The long spear in his hand stabbed the demon's back leg, making it slow down. Lin Ruoxi took the opportunity to hide into the wooden house with her child, closed the door hard, and gasped against the door. The child was shaking in her, his face turned pale, and he kept shouting "Mom" in his mouth. "Don't be afraid, it's okay." Lin Ruoxi patted his back, his voice as gentle as possible, but his palms were covered in cold sweat. She looked out from the doorman and saw that the warrior was having sex with the demon. Although he was reluctant to be able to deal with it, he clearly lost his temper. The battle outside the village became more and more intense, and the sound of roars and weapons colliding was not completely different. "How is this dangerous place?" Lin Ruoxi gritted her teeth and felt powerless in her heart. She is not a hero and has no special abilities. Now that she is trapped in this place, her life may be destroyed at any time. She lowered her head and looked at the child inside, took a deep breath, and told herself, "No, you can't just sit here, at least you have to protect this little guy." After about 10 minutes, the roar outside the village gradually weakened, and the battle seemed to be nearing the end. Lin Ruoxi carefully pushed the door open and walked out with the child. The entrance of the village was already in a mess, and the ground was filled with blood and demon limbs. Several warriors were injured and were helping each other back to the village. Zhang Haoran stood in front, with a few blood marks on his body, but his eyes were still so cold. He saw Lin Ruoxi, and walked over with a slight brow. "You're okay?" His voice was low, with a little fatigue. "Okay, I almost lost my life." Lin Ruoxi smiled bitterly, handed the child over to a woman who ran over, and then patted the mud on her body. "Do you do this place like this every day? Or do you think my health is particularly bad?" Zhang Haoran ignored her comments and turned around the village, with a heavy lingering voice. "The energy of the crack is getting more and more uncertain, and the frequency of the magic balls is getting higher and higher. This is not a coincidence, someone or something is interfering with it." He put it on, his eyes falling back to Lin Ruoxi. "It was such a coincidence that you appeared, and I still can't believe you completely." Lin Ruoxi rolled her eyes and said unhappily, "I am almost scared to death by the monsters here in your place, and I still doubt me? If I had any harshness, I would have run away long ago. Would you be waiting to die here?" Zhang Haoran didn't say anything, but just looked at her deeply, then turned around and walked towards the old man's wooden house. Lin Ruoxi sighed. Although she was unhappy, she also knew that this person was born to act like he didn't trust others and could not help. She followed her and began to calculate in her heart, the matter of this crack is definitely not simple. Zhang Haoran and the others were guarding this, but they couldn't figure out why they were out of control. They might be able to help them, so they found a way to go back. The atmosphere in the old wooden house is more solemn than before. The white-haired old man sat in the main seat, his face dark, and the heads of several tribes were also there, with a serious expression. After Zhang Haoran entered the house, he reported the battle just now. When the number of magical animals was abnormal, the old man's eyebrows became deeper. The rift is becoming more and more frequent, and this is not a natural phenomenon. The eldest son opened his mouth, and his voice was filled with strength. Haoran, you took this outsider to the rift. What reaction did she have? Zhang Haoran looked at Lin Ruoxi and said in a deep voice, she seems to know nothing about the cleft, but she can come here through the cleft, which shows that she has some kind of contact with the cleft. I suggest that she stay in the tribe first and observe for a while. Lin Ruoxi heard a little impatient and couldn't help but interrupt, hey, I'm here. Can you not treat me transparent? I really don't know what cracks are not cracked, but I don't want to stay here and wait for death. If you know how to go back, tell me, I promise not to give you trouble. The old man turned his head to look at her, his eyes so bright that he could see through people's hearts. Little girl, the crack is not as simple as you think. It connects two worlds, and it may also destroy two worlds. Can you come here and show that you have been selected, but this is a blessing or a mistake, who is not accurate? Want to go back? Yes, but you have to prove first that you are not a threat. Lin Ruoxi's heart sank. Is it clear? How to prove it? She didn't even know why she came from, and she still had to recite this crock now? Just as she was about to turn against her, the elder snatched her hand and signaled her not to speak again. Haoran, from tomorrow on, you will take her to the vicinity of the cracker and teach her some basic self-defense skills, and let's see what impact she has on the cracker. The old man, Chang, put it on and added, also, the forest has not been peaceful recently, and there are rumors that Wang Lai is operating nearby again, keeping an eye on the spot. Zhang Haoran looked slightly, and his face became even heavier. Lin Ruoxi heard the name Wang Lai and couldn't help asking, who is Wang Lai? He doesn't sound like a good person. Zhang Haoran snorted coldly and said unhappily, he is a traitor, once a member of our tribe, and later betrayed us and tried to use the power of the crack to benefit himself. He is cunning and dangerous, so you better not meet him. Lin Ruoxi pointed a little and felt more vigilant in her heart. This place was already in trouble, and there are still many traitors now, and I feel that something might happen at any time. However, she didn't have too many choices, so she could only follow Zhang Haoran first to see if she could find the trace of going back. In the next few days, Zhang Haoran began to teach her some basic self-defense skills. Although his attitude is still cold, he is quite serious when teaching. He can explain it step by step, from how to hold the knife to how to avoid attacks. Although Lin Ruoxi has no foundation, she has learned everything quickly and has been able to handle some simple attacks after several days. After every day after the training, Zhang Haoran would take her to the cave where the cleavage was, allowing her to stand in front of the light curtain and try to feel its energy fluctuations. At first, Lin Ruoxi could not feel anything, only the light curtain looked pretty, but slowly, she began to notice that every time she approached the light curtain, her heartbeat would inexplicably speed up, and some blurry pictures would flash in her brain, like memory fragments, but she could not grasp them. Is this affecting me? One evening, Lin Ruoxi couldn't help asking Zhang Haoran. She stood in front of the light curtain, sweating hard on her head, and just flashed through a blurry picture, which made her head hurt. Zhang Haoran stood aside, his eyes chaotic. The energy of the crack has a different impact on everyone. Some people will be swallowed by it, and some people can gain power from it. You seem to have some kind of croaker with it, but this is not a good thing. Every time you get close to it, you may lose something, such as memory, or something more important. Lin Ruoxi felt nervous and lost her memory. She had already had some vague clips of her past, and now she heard Zhang Haoran's words, and she felt her back was shaking. She bit her lip and asked, then why are you still guarding this? Since it's so dangerous, can you just destroy it? Zhang Haoran shook his head and his voice was low. The crack is not something we can destroy. It is the new belt of both worlds. Forced destruction will only cause both worlds to collapse. We are guarding it to prevent people from using its power, such as Wang Lai. Lin Ruoxi was silent, and her heart felt like a stone was pressing down. The power of the crack sounded more and more terrifying, but she had to rely on it because it was her only hope to go back. She looked down at her palm, believing that every time she approached the crack, she seemed to be a little different, but she couldn't say what it was. At this moment, a sudden burst of stomping sound came from outside the cave. A tribal warrior rushed in and was filled with panic. "Brother Haoran, it's not good." Wang Lai led his men into the whistle near the tribe, took away several magic stones, and was now heading towards the cracker. Zhang Haoran's face changed. He tightened the giant sword, and turned to Lin Ruoxi. "Stay here, don't move. If there is anything, run into the cave and don't come out." After saying that, he quickly rushed out with the warrior. Lin Ruoxi stood there, her heart rising and falling. She knew she should listen, but couldn't help but wonder what was happening outside. Who is Wang Lai? Why do you need to snatch the philosopher's stone? What is the relationship between these things and the crack? She hesitated for a few seconds, and quietly walked to the entrance of the cave and looked out. The forest has become a group, and the sound of weapons colliding can be heard from afar, and there are still a few roars. Lin Ruoxi gritted her teeth and thrust her heart into her mind whether to follow her, but at this moment, a cold voice echoed behind her, "Little girl, it's not safe to hide here." She turned around suddenly, only to see a thin figure standing far from the entrance of the cave, wearing a broken cloak and a strange smile on her face. The man's eyes were cold, like a poisonous snake staring at a pet, making Lin Ruoxi's whole body numb in an instant. She subconsciously took a step back, and there was only one thought in her brain: this guy should be Wang Lai. Lin Ruoxi's heart beats like a drum beat, and she stepped back unconsciously, staring at the thin man in front of her. His cloak was as if it had been blown by the wind for decades, and his edges were stained with soil and blood. The smile on his face made people creepy, as if he could bite people at any time. She swallowed and opened her mouth firmly. "Who are you? If outsiders don't let outsiders enter this place, you'd better leave." The man smiled lightly, and the sound was as sandy as frosted paper and scraped over the glass. "Little girl, her mouth is quite hard. My name is Wang Lai. Have you heard it? Oh, by the way, you are a foreigner, and you may not know my name. But it doesn't matter, you will soon remember me." A buzzing sound from Lin Ruoxi's brain was indeed a traitor in Wang Lai and Zhang Haoran's mouth. She clenched her fists tightly, and although she was so panicked, she still snatched her face. "What do you want to fuck? I didn't mess with you, don't find any wrongdoers." Wang Lai grinned, his eyes filled with greed. "Make me? No, I'm not interested in you, what I want is the power of the crack. And you are just a good tool. Hearing that you can share the bird with the crack, this is much more useful than the broken stones in my hands. Come, follow me obediently, so I can avoid rushing." Lin Ruoxi gritted her teeth and thought about the countermeasures. She knew that she could not beat this guy, and Zhang Haoran was not nearby, so she couldn't run far away. The only way is to delay time and wait for someone to come to save the scene. She took a deep breath and pretended to be cleared. "Okay, I'll go with you, but you have to tell me first, what are you doing with the power of the crack? Is this something you can control, right?" Wang Lai narrowed his eyes, as if he hadn't expected her to ask this. He stopped, looked her up and down, and then sneered, "Little girl, my brain is moving very fast. It's okay to tell you, you can't escape anyway. The power of the crack can allow me to control two worlds, whether it's the magic here or the technology at yours, I want it. The Qingyan tribe's stupid goods only know how to guard this broken place, but I don't know how many good things the crack can bring. I'm different. What I want is to govern everything." Lin Ruoxi heard the sound of her back. This guy was so ambitious that he was simply a crazy person. She smiled reluctantly and continued to talk. "It sounds pretty bad, but the crack is so unstable, aren't you afraid of playing and destroying both worlds?" Wang Lai snorted, obviously disdaining. "It's destroyed? That's stronger than now. The two worlds have been separated by too long and should have been merged long ago. I just speed up this process. As for you, don't talk too much, just follow me." After speaking, he suddenly took a step forward and reached out to grab Lin Ruoxi's arm. Lin Ruoxi had already prepared and suddenly flashed to the side. Although she did not hide completely, she was not caught by him. She turned around and ran deep into the cave, shouting, "Zhang Haoran! Someone is here! Come quickly!" She knew that this sound might not be able to be transmitted, but at least it could distract Wang Lai. Sure enough, Wang Lai's face darkened and he whispered, "Looking for death." He caught up with him in a few steps, and his speed was astonishing that Lin Ruoxi could not get rid of it. She ran into the hole, slid her eyes around her, trying to find a place to hide, but there was almost nothing in the hole except for the cracked light curtain. Her heart beats faster and faster, her brain is in chaos, and her pace begins to stumble. At this moment, Wang Lai had already chased her, and his dagger slammed her back with a cold wind. Lin Ruoxi subconsciously understood her body, and a hole was still drawn on her shoulder, and the blood was instantly pulled out, making her bitter teeth tightly closed. She covered her wound and stumbled back to the cracked light curtain. A thought suddenly flashed in her brain, can it help me? She didn't know why she thought so, but she told her that there was some kind of connection between the rift and her. She stretched out her hand and touched the light curtain with trembling. In an instant, a strong wave of energy flowed from her fingertips, like a current passing through her whole body, making her dizzy. At the same time, the surface of the light curtain began to roar violently, like the water surface was thrown into the stone, and ripples appeared. Wang Lai saw this and his face changed drastically, and he roared, "What are you fucking? Stop!" He rushed over and tried to pull her, but a strong light suddenly burst out from the light curtain, which shocked him a few steps back. He covered his eyes and stepped back with a slightest idea that this would happen. Lin Ruoxi was also confused. She felt a heat flowing from the light curtain and the blurred picture in her brain flashed again, but this time it became clearer. She saw herself standing in the warehouse, with blue light wrapped around her, and some strange scenes, as if she was in another world. She clenched her teeth and tried to grab the memory, but her head was so painful that she was almost unstable. At this moment, a rapid sound of footsteps came from the entrance of the cave. Zhang Haoran's voice was low and anxious, "Lin Ruoxi. Where are you?" His figure soon appeared in the cave. The giant sword was carried on his shoulders, and there were still a few new injuries on his body, which obviously solved the trouble outside. As soon as he saw Wang Lai, his eyes suddenly became cold. "Wang Lai, you are indeed here." Wang Lai sneered and stood up straight, "Zhang Haoran, come very quickly. Unfortunately, you are one step late. This little girl has helped me to activate the energy of the crack. When I get the power, your Qingyan tribe will be waiting to die." After he finished speaking, he took out a piece of luminous magic stone from under his cloak and smashed it hard on the ground. As the stone shattered, a black fog stormed out of it, quickly wrapping his body. Zhang Haoran shouted loudly and tried to stop him, but when the black fog spread, Wang Lai could no longer see the shadow, leaving only a cold smile in the hole. "Wait, I will come back soon, with real power." Lin Ruoxi leaned against the cave wall, covering the wound on her shoulders, her face as white as paper. Zhang Haoran turned to look at her, his eyebrows were tightly locked, and he walked quickly over to check her injuries. "What are you doing? What happened just now?" She smiled reluctantly, and her voice was weak. "It's nothing, it's just a knife." Wang Lai said he wanted to use the power of the crack to govern the two worlds, and also said what energy I had activated for him. I don't know what he was talking about, but I definitely touched the light curtain, and then I was very excited. Zhang Haoran's face was a little deeper. He looked down at the volatility of the old drama's light curtain, and his language was helpless. "Your contact with the rift is deeper than I thought. The energy wave just now may have caused some of its mechanisms. Wang Lai took the Philosopher's Stone and will definitely use it to further interfere with the rift. We have to stop him tightly, otherwise there will be dangers in both worlds." Lin Ruoxi pointed a little. Although the wound was still hurting, she knew that it was not the time to rest now. She gritted her teeth and stood up straight, asking, "Then what should we do?" Wang Lai ran away. "Why should we find him?" Zhang Haoran was silent for a few seconds, and then said, "The energy wave of the crack can guide us to find him, but it requires you to help." You can sense its change and may be able to track Wang Lai's position. But he put on his head, his eyes chaotic. This is dangerous for you. Every time you get close to the crack, you will lose something, memory, or more. Lin Ruoxi felt a nervous heart. She had long felt the impact of the crack on her. The vague fragments in her brain became less and less, and sometimes even she was a little dazed. But she knew that if Wang Lai was not stopped, not only this world would be the world, but her home might be ruined. She took a deep breath and said calmly, I don't have to choose, right? Then come and tell me what to do. Zhang Haoran looked at her, and there was a little more approval in his eyes for the first time. He clicked and said, okay, come back to the tribe with me. We need help from elders and some magic stones to stabilize your condition. Time is running out, so we have to move tightly. When the two left the cave and returned to the Qingyan tribe, it was completely dark. The atmosphere in the village was still strong, and the warriors were repairing the siege that was destroyed by the demons. The elder stood in front of the wooden house, his face as dark as the sky before the rain. Zhang Haoran briefly reported what happened in the cave. After hearing this, Chang Lao was silent for a long time before he spoke. The curse of the crack is more complicated than we think. Wang Lai took away the magic stone and told him that he had found a way to further unblock the crack. If he was not stopped, both worlds would collapse. Lin Ruoxi felt a little angry when she heard it, and couldn't help asking, curse? What curse? You have never told me this. The old man turned his head to look at her, his eyes as deep as he could see through everything. The crack is not formed naturally, it is the consequence of a taboo sermon 1,000 years ago. That gallery sermon blends two worlds and fails, leaving a crack and a curse. Anyone who tries to control the crack will pay the price. And you can share the sword with the crack, indicating that you may be the key to cracking the curse, but it may also be its victim. Lin Ruoxi stood there in a daze, her brain formed a group. An offender? She is just an ordinary person, why did she get involved in this? But she knew that there was no time to confuse these things now, so she had to stop Wang Lai first. She gritted her teeth and asked, then what should I do? The old man took out a small magic stone from the ground. The surface of the stone was filled with ancient runes and emitted a faint light. He sent Lin Ruoxi with a low voice, this is the last complete magic stone in our tribe, which can temporarily stabilize the impact of the cracker on you. Next, you and Haoran are going to follow Wang Lai, find his hiding place, and prevent him from completing the stance. But remember, the price of cracking the curse may be greater than you think. Lin Ruoxi took the magic stone and felt a warm feeling from the palm of her hand. She looked down at the small stone, and her heart felt like it was weighing thousands of pounds. She knew that this might be her last chance, whether to save the world or return to her own home. Zhang Haoran stood aside, silently checking his giant sword, his eyes as if he was ready to die. In the next few days, the two people began to follow Wang Lai's whereabouts based on the energy fluctuations of the crack. Lin Ruoxi held the philosopher's stone. Every time he approached the crack, the pain in his brain would be lighter, but the memory was missing more and more obvious. She began to forget some small things, such as the things she liked when she was a child, and even the styles at home were a little blurred. They walked through the forest, crossed the mountains and valleys, and finally found Wang Lai's hiding place in a secret island valley. It was covered with black fogs, and there was a rotten smell in the air, as if something was rotting. In the middle of the valley, a huge cracked light curtain floated in the air, larger than that near the tribe, and the surface was abnormally volatile. Next to the light curtain, Wang Lai was standing in front of a fort made of stones, holding several magic stones in his hand and chanting spells that he couldn't understand. Zhang Haoran said in a low voice, he is performing a stance, trying to completely open the crack. We have to stop him, but be careful, there are demons guarding him. Lin Ruoxi pointed his head and tightened the short knife in his hand. This was what Zhang Haoran taught her to use. Although it was not very good at helping, it could at least be self-defense. The two approached quietly. While Wang Lai was focusing on the ceremony, Zhang Haoran took the lead in rushing out, and the giant sword slashed straight at a demon next to the sacrificial fort with blue light. Lin Ruoxi went to another side and tried to get close to Wang Lai, destroying his ritual. But Wang Lai had already prepared for it. He turned around suddenly, and a dagger was swept, and a dark red energy wave shot directly towards Lin Ruoxi. She couldn't react and was hit by the energy wave and fell to the ground, as if her chest was hit hard, and she couldn't breathe. Wang Lai walked over with a sneer, with a cold voice, "Little girl, I'm really not afraid of death. Unfortunately, you are late, the stance has been completed, and the power of the crack is mine immediately." Lin Ruoxi gritted her teeth and suddenly flashed a strong memory fragment in her brain. She saw the moment she passed through the crack, and there was a vague figure, as if she was saying something to her. She suddenly realized that the power of the crack is not a single channel, it still contains the memory and emotions of the time traveler, and she is its body. She stood up and held the magic stone in her hand tightly, and rushed towards the cracked light curtain. Wang Lai saw the situation and his face changed drastically. He roared and wanted to stop her, but Zhang Haoran had already solved the devil. In front of him, the two of them instantly fell together. Lin Ruoxi ran to the light curtain and pressed her hand on the waving surface. In an instant, a powerful energy stormed into her body, and the memory fragments in her brain began to be crushed, but at the same time, she also felt that her consciousness was being swallowed. She gritted her teeth and growled, "I won't let you succeed." She pressed the magic stone into the light curtain with the last force. As soon as the stone shattered, a dazzling white light burst out and covered the entire valley. When the white light dissipates, the cracking light curtain begins to shrink, as if it is closed by some force. Wang Lai let out an unwilling roar, and was hit by an energy wave and fell heavily to the ground and fainted. Zhang Haoran gasped heavily and turned to look at Lin Ruoxi, but found that she had fallen to the ground, her face as if she had lost her vitality. He rushed over, helped her up, and shouted in a low voice, "Lin Ruoxi! Wake up!" Her eyelids were slightly slight, and she opened her eyes tightly. Her voice was so weak that she could hardly hear. "Did the crack close?" Zhang Haoran looked a little, his eyes filled with complex emotions. "It's closed, you did it. But, the price you paid may be bigger than what we thought." Lin Ruoxi smiled reluctantly, and her eyes began to dissipate. She felt that her memory was losing rapidly, and even Zhang Haoran's face became blurred. She said in a low voice, "If I forgot you, don't blame me, tell me, how can I see you again?" Zhang Haoran shook her hand tightly, and his voice was low, "If there is a chance, I will go find you. Between the two worlds, new cracks will always appear. By then, I will pass through it and find you." Lin Ruoxi pointed a little, her eyelids became heavier and heavier, and her mind gradually fell into darkness. She didn't know if she would remember all this, nor would she know if she could go home, but she heard a familiar buzzing sound from afar, like the sound of a cracker turning on again, carrying a faint hope, rumbling in the dark.